In this section, we'll start to take a closer look at some of the organizational things that went into the creation of the Roman Republic and try to elaborate on some of the ideas of how they got to be, not only through their series of legends, a state, an entity that was successful and powerful and stable, but also take a look at some of the nuts and bolts and review how they did it in sort of a brick-by-brick approach, all right? In this era, then, we're thinking about, and you'll see this, roughly in the 8th century BCE is the Roman date when they say they founded their republic, that they overthrew the monarchy of someone called Tarquin the Proud. And then from there, they were organizing their government and the whole idea of what they're trying to do as a state on the basis of the best interests of the elite classes as represented over time by the Senate. And then, of course, the people in the Senate are the wealthy landowners, many of them of long standing. So that essentially, from a Greek viewpoint, this is what looks like to be sort of the transition from monarchy to oligarchy, from one family rule into sort of a joint committee rule. But the people on the committee, the oligarchy, are not randomly chosen. They're not representative of all of society. They are, though, representative of the elite classes. So when we look at the early formation of the Republic, you'll see that these are the same kind of families that are going to be in charge in the coming generations. They're the ones who are already in charge, and that sort of anonymously, many of the plebeians are not involved, and of course we will get back to that in time. The other thing, and this is one of the tricky parts, many of the texts that you're reading, both in online or in physical form, some of the books recommended, you're going to see that they're going to be tempted oftentimes to give you a lot of Latin terminology, a lot of names and titles of different things in Latin. And on one hand, it's not to confuse you, but it's to be specific about what exactly they're trying to say. What I would like to do is, as you go through that material, take a deeper look and a wider look. And what I'm thinking is, you should understand all the creations of those titles and ideas as linked to two things. One, how to have some level of government deal with everything from, how to keep the streets clean and how to organize control over the street markets, all the way up through to military and political and legal policy. The Romans create a series of offices that are going to be dealing with each one of those things. So do not get bewildered by some of the vocabulary you might see. Think in terms of the sort of structural ladder that they are creating. The expectation of Roman men is that they would serve in many of those offices of state over time, and that they would go up through the ladder of authority. But the starting point for most Roman men in creating themselves as public figures and public servants will be an expectation that there's at least a decade of service in the Roman army, that the Roman army service for a decade is sort of the opening by which you get into the offices of state that will be elected later on. But you can't just start as a politician. In this Roman Republic, you are a soldier first, a servant of the state, and then once you leave military service full-time, or even part-time, you can then start to go up through the ladders of offices. So don't get bewildered by the alphabet soup of names there that might come at you. This is simply a stylized representation, and I want to use it for a second to think about this. The Roman Republic is now going to be organized on the basis of the elite classes from the Senate, and this is a stylized picture of a senator, in toga. The idea of the Senate is that it's a deliberative body and a very powerful body, and it's one that people do not cross. They do not fight it that much. They think in terms of the Senate as the leading voice and the only voice in the way government functions and operates. So when the Senate says something and the representatives who are senators say things, they're not just idle rumor. They are essentially taking on the idea of command and the idea of structure, and that this is what we're going to do. With that in mind, one of the key terms, one of the key offices I would like to call your attention to is that of the consul, all right? And these are elected offices amongst the elite people. Their term of office is generally 1 year. It is only to honor the men who have done all the other steps in the system of offices. It is essentially a reward for long-term service, and also for being deliberative and serious and wise. This is not something that's handed out like candy. You don't get this because you just hung around long enough and managed to just kind of rise to the top of candidates. You have to get a reputation of success And here's the important part. Consuls have what's called imperium. Now, like I said, I didn't want to introduce a lot of Latin here, but I want to introduce this word because you'll see within it some of the corruptions of it that will come up later. You'll see the creation of what we're going to be knowing as imperialism, right? The outside control and domination of a place by others. You'll also in time see some ideas that are going to lead you to believe that we use the term imperious, for example, in modern English to mean somebody who's kind of lording it over somebody else and kind of being bossy. You'll see that idea as well. But what I want you to think about here is the consuls, right? With imperium, these are the people who have been elected to power through the mechanisms of the elite, through the mechanisms of the Senate and the elite families. And these consuls are then going to represent not only the interests of the Senate, but also the interests of the larger families that are making up the Senate. So essentially this is an elite government. This is a powerful elite government that is going to be moving forward and saying that it speaks for all of Rome. Okay? The other thing that's going to be keeping Rome on track is the Senate is seen by many of the people in the Republic as the place where all the real action takes place. That's where the ideas are put together, war policies put together, significant elections and appointment to other offices and military commands takes place. The Senate is the heartbeat of this republic. It's the place where the information is going to be out. That's where the debates take place between family members or between different kind of factions who believe in one or the other kinds of policies. In other words, it sort of combines of all the functions of state into one place. Instead of having them divided up like many of us are used to in modern America, we have all power essentially resting in the Senate itself. The Senate then is the one that's going to create the infrastructure, the ones that are going to take what we have in terms of a Roman Empire. And this is just one of many scenes that we could pull off and take a look at. This is a Roman road. And there are many places in Europe and other places in Africa and Asia as well, where some of the very simple infrastructure that was created by the Romans to serve their needs over time were created. Long-distance roads, aqueducts, there's legacies of all these things, palaces, walled cities, and fortresses. My point is this: when we look at the origins of what we're trying to do with early Roman Republic here, we're talking about an oligarchy that is going to back up what it's saying by action and by fulfillment. That the Senate is not an empty debating society. It's not a place where they're just making noise. It's a place where things are getting done. There are decisions being made, they are being executed, and they're going to be following through. Take a look at this aspect in the reading that you're doing about the formation of the early republic, and take a look at those two key differences between the patrician and the plebeian groups, and then also take a look at much of the early success of the Senate in organizing a stable, militarized, and very successful state. Also, make sure you check out those sample questions.